Right, today we've got Makuhari Cross in Chiba, just outside Tokyo. The under 17 group started ahead of us by about a minute, so they're off. There were maybe 8 or so of them, and I'm again in the ME4 category, which is the beginner category out of 4. I think there were about 100 people registered, so it was split into 2 groups, A and B, and I was in B today. I'm back into the top 10 for this season rankings after 3 decent finishes so far this year. So I ended up with number 1 starting position today. Sometimes it's really clearly better to be on the left side or the right side, depending on what's coming up out of the opening straightaway. But it wasn't really obvious to me today, so I just decided to go right in the middle. I've been going back through my videos from last year, and it looked like I was really jumping out too hard in a lot of races and exhausting myself pretty early. So I'd usually see that the first lap is the fastest, and then second slower, third a little slower still. So I really wanted to reverse that this season and try to have a more modest first lap, as long as I'm not falling too far behind. And then just be more consistent throughout the race and have some energy left at the end. So it's definitely a hard, sustained effort here at the start. My power is up over 400, 500, 600 even here at times. But not, 1,000-watt sprint right up off the starting line, or any real crazy accelerations out of these winding turns. So maybe a little harder than ideal, in a completely open course, but with so many people behind me, you hope that after this first minute or two, things start to spread out a little bit and calm down. Most of the course today was either this dry grass or else some packed dirt in other sections. So I threw on my wheels that had an all-around tire in the front, and then a faster file tread tire in the back that doesn't really need to clear mud out with wider knobs. It's a very tight tread pattern. This was the first tough little feature here. So there's a slip right there on this off-camber turn where you have to turn to the left while it's sloping down to the right. So it's really hard to maintain traction there, especially with not the right tires on or not the right pressure. I noticed a few people slip in the pre-ride there as well. This one here wasn't really difficult, but I could imagine if it was any wetter today, that incline might have gotten very slick. But it was just dry enough where it didn't really cause any problems for me or anyone else that I noticed. Coming up right here was sort of an interesting... yeah, see that guy slip down, but there are 2 approaches here, which is really interesting. Last year there was just 1 approach open there, so if one person falls, it really creates a huge bottleneck for everyone behind them. But with 2 approaches today, you could just take a different approach from the person in front of you, and if they have any trouble, then it doesn't hold you up. Obviously you can't do that if it's crowded and there are a few people riding. I wonder if that was a deliberate decision by the organizers this year to try to eliminate some of those bottlenecks and make sure that people aren't too frustrated by getting stuck behind someone else's stumble in front of them. It's definitely frustrating to get stuck behind something that you yourself didn't cause, and that's part of this sport, but it's just nice to not have that be the deciding factor. back to the grass here. Didn't realize there was that much of a power spike. I was up to 600 watts or so. The grass was pretty thick and pretty slow, so it's definitely a challenge to feel like I was maintaining speed without sort of overdoing it on the power. The dry grass did make for pretty good traction though, so didn't have to worry that much about slipping out and losing traction on the turns. Then pretty fast approach to these double barriers here. No particular issues today, and I didn't see anyone fall either. These tight turns here would have been a lot more challenging with wetter grass or more loose dirt. But today, with it being relatively dry and the grass not being too matted down, it really wasn't much of an issue. There's another little steep incline coming up around this turn here. Again, a couple of approaches. This one on the left seemed like the best. There's a bit of packed dirt there. But just before the top, it got a lot looser. So if you didn't come up with enough speed, then you could lose your momentum and get stuck in that dirt. And some people would just lose their balance and fall, or you might get the front wheel up over the top and have to just unclip and sort of shimmy up and over. These turns were a little sketchy here. There was a little bit of loose dirt and a little gravel up here, loose dirt there. So probably compared to at least any of the other turns in the course, those were maybe the most dangerous when coming in with a little speed. But since it's just a couple of turns before the finish line, I think there's a lot of temptation to come through there pretty fast to be able to open up to this this straightaway here before the finish line. So you can see that my lap counter on the right there hasn't started yet, but right here at the finish line, yeah, that's where it starts the first lap. That's because the start was actually just up here to the right. There was a separately cordoned off area. Let's see if you can see it. Yep, just off to the right there, where those metal barriers are. That was the opening straightaway. So since it was less than a full lap, the lap counter didn't take that into account. So I think the full race was 3 laps plus almost a complete 4th lap. But the lap counter is only showing that there were 3 laps. So after I do this commentary, I'll add in the position counter in the bottom right of the video there. And during the race, I think I had an idea of where I was within a spot or two, but I don't quite remember now, looking back, even though it was just yesterday. I think I was probably around 3rd or 4th place at this point. So the leaders were definitely still in view. And then I could see a few people behind me and then several more a little ways back. But it wasn't a case like some races where there's a clear lead group of 5, 6 or more people. It was really just a handful of people spread out a little bit. And then I think a decent sized gap behind us to these grassy sections really required a bit more power, and then some of the more technical sections were a little bit of a rest, maybe not mentally but physically. So I tried to get ahead of that guy here coming into that little bit of a technical section coming up. So I definitely like to go through the technical sections first. It's a little bit like playing defense. So if I slip or get caught up anywhere, it's likely going to slow the person behind me down as well, so that they won't slip away with the lead. And of course, if they slip and fall, then I'm able to get ahead and expand the lead. Whereas if I'm behind them, I would just get caught up in it as well, and just the two of us would lose ground to the people chasing from behind. And then of course in some of the sections like those steep inclines, it's really nice to be able to choose which approach I want to take rather than having that choice be determined by the actions that someone in front of me is taking. So again, this one wasn't problematic, and there's a left-hand approach there too that you could take if someone's on the right. But again, I'd just rather take the lines that I want to take. And then around this turn was the trickier one. I liked the left-hand approach. I thought it was a bit smoother, a little more packed to dirt. So that time I made it all the way up without issue. But if someone had been in front of me there and they chose the left approach, then I probably would have been cautious and I would have chosen the right-hand approach. And again, I thought that right-hand approach was a little riskier with looser dirt, and I would have had a higher chance of falling. Oh, there's another fall off to the left. I don't remember what was on the ground there, but it may have been a little rough and uneven. Like here, there's a couple of roots that were a little tricky. I think over on the other side where that fall was, there may have been some mounds on the ground or some uneven spots. I think I must have been third place here. I think that's second in front of me, first just in front of him, and then I think the guy behind me is the one who passed earlier in the grass, and then I got ahead of before the technical section. So again, in this grassy section, coming out of that last technical area, the trend was for people to really put in a lot of power to try to pass or make up ground. And I definitely recognized that was happening. We would have these areas of relatively harder efforts, and then areas of relative rest in the more technical sections. But I was just tired enough where I just couldn't quite get myself to a place psychologically where I was really pushing hard enough to stick with someone passing me. I think I always had in the back of my mind that I didn't want to really blow myself up. And if I pushed too hard, then I'd be at risk of 3 more people coming from behind and passing me. And that's happened so many times in the past where I've slipped out of the top 5 and ended up finishing 10th, 11th, 12th. So, I guess I can give myself credit for sticking with my plan of staying relatively consistent throughout the race. But in retrospect, I might have pushed a little harder on those harder, grassier areas when I knew that rest was coming, and an area like this that was a little more winding and less opportunity for power surges. Thought I was catching up to the guy in front of me a little bit at least. I think he stumbled on his dismount leading into the two barriers after that straightaway in the grass. It looks like he did put some more distance between us here. Looks like my heart rate was under control. below 170 beats per minute. Not putting in too much power here. I guess I must have been trying to take a little bit of a breather. Just about halfway through the race, that was the end of the first full lap, but you know, we had the almost full lap before that, so really 2 full laps just about. And I guess I was comfortable enough here to put in a little bit of an effort, getting up to 350 watts, which is above threshold, but not especially hard. Back down a bit here, though. And so I see my power spike up there a bit, over 450 watts or so. I think I might have been reminding myself at this point that it was just a minute or two stretch of relatively harder effort before we got the chance to rest in the more technical section coming up ahead. So I guess I was trying to catch up a bit before the next slower section. But even still, my surges weren't really that excessive, and overall I guess my power was pretty consistent through here, relatively speaking. Looks like I've lost sight of the person in front of me, though, if he was second place. And then number 34 again here. For the last lap, I had passed him just before this technical section, and I guess he decided he wanted to get in front of me now. See how it goes. I think just around this turn here, no, maybe the next turn, was one of those areas with a really uneven, rough, yeah, here, this double bump was, I just couldn't find a way to ride it smoothly. I don't remember if I made an effort to pass this guy here. A little incline here, spike up to 500 or 600 watts. Heart rate's not bad, still 170 beats per minute. I think the guy in front of me is sort of instinctively going for a wide approach to the turn here. And I often like to do that too, but here, you know, is uphill, slow, good traction with the dry grass. So in that case, I actually thought that the sort of the inner line would be more efficient. I guess I probably did make up a little bit of ground there, but I guess it didn't really do me much good as he's pulling away a little bit here. So after this U-turn here, it should start to speed up a bit back to the finish line, and then the longer grassy section in the middle of the course. You can see my power start to creep up a little bit. So we're entering the final lap here. Ignoring the first partial lap, it looks like my second full lap was a little slower than my first full lap. So just looking at the lap time, maybe not quite as consistent as I was hoping for, but not that bad either. Putting aside the lap times though, I think overall my efforts were fairly consistent in the sense that I didn't spike up too high when I was in more effort. And maybe see spikes up to 350, 400 watts, occasionally 500 watts. And that's really not getting into the anaerobic zone too much. I think above 360 watts or so would be my anaerobic zone. So I think without too many anaerobic surges, I was able to conserve energy a little bit. And then through a lot of these sections where I wasn't surging, I could at least maintain a relatively constant speed and power output. Whereas if I was really sprinting out of each turn or up each little hill and really going deep into the anaerobic zone, I think that would really sap my energy, and then I would try to be taking every chance to rest that I could. think I was still in 4th place here. I saw 5th place behind me, 3rd place ahead of me. Definitely still a chance to catch up, but also a chance to be caught from behind. Not sure what he was going to do. I wanted to get to the far end. I was able to get around him. I was worried that he was going to try to get out of the way and go up towards the tape there and end up getting in my way, but luckily that didn't happen. I lost track of the guy in front of me though. I thought I was a little closer, but it seems like he had a burst of speed. I guess that's him up there, a couple turns ahead. About 3.5 minutes left to try to catch him. So with 3 minutes left in the race, I think I probably did have more energy left compared to some other races. I was still able to spike up to 500-600 watts here. My heart rate still is not that bad, 172, 173 beats per minute. In a lot of previous races, I would just be sort of struggling these last few minutes to just get across the finish line. And I think the guy in front of me was increasing his lead, so unfortunately it was my chances of 3rd place were slowly slipping away, but I felt like I did at least still have a chance. I think that 5th place behind me was also falling farther and farther behind. I was a lapped rider there, so no change in my position. Looks like 3rd place has slipped out of view ahead. That is in front of me just bunny hopped the double barriers. Black jersey. I don't think he was in our group. I think he must have been an under 17 rider. There's a 3rd place rider, just rode off the screen. And then this is the last U-turn before the finish line. So he's probably got a 15-second lead or so. So definitely not enough room left to try to overtake him at the finish line. But I definitely did feel like I had energy here at the end. So looking back, I probably could have put in more effort in the grassy section earlier to try to catch up to 3rd place. So I finished 4th place today, which is, I guess, my best finish ever, especially in a race of as many as 50 people like this. So all in all, happy with the result. I guess it could have gone a little differently with some different choices throughout the race. But I think I put myself in a pretty good position to win. It didn't work out this time, but I think I am progressing, and maybe one of these times things will go just right, and I will have a chance to upgrade to the next level. But until then, having fun with these ones and looking forward to seeing everyone at the next ride.